Welcome. I'm Susan Platt, and I'm on the art committee, the wonderful art committee chaired by wonderful John Pound. And Sally Renn on the diversity committee is a co-sponsor. Too closer? Is that better?
Yes.
Can you hear me? No?
Not very loud, period.
It's not loud? Hello? Put it right up, but up germs on it. Oh well, never mind. Welcome! I'm going to start with a couple of quotes because Marita Dingus is a very dear friend of mine for many years, and she's in both of the books that I've published on artists in this area. They're both in the library here, so I thought a couple of quotes. Rarely is one so immediately aware of the particular power of artists to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, as in the work of Marita Dingus. Marita Dingus chooses recycled materials and vernacular traditions, like quilting and dolls, to address the history of slavery and its legacies. With the look of folk art, Dingus conveys sophisticated concepts based in the spiritual, the political, the feminist, and the historical. Her doll-like forms convey a wealth of emotions: homage, fear, dignity, and euphoria. Some of you may have seen the children flying across the wall at the Douglas Truth Library in the Central District. Dingus is the antithesis of a folk artist. She is third generation in her family to be college educated. She lives in Auburn, a small town near Seattle, where her family has lived since the 1970s, after her father was hired as an engineer at Boeing. The two black families in Auburn were asked to live next to the cemetery. Dingus attended the Tyler School of Art at Temple University in Philadelphia. San Jose State University received a Visual Art Fellowship from Artists Trust and a Guggenheim Fellowship and the Poncho Artist of the Year Award in 2005. She's had solo exhibitions at several museums in Norway, as well as the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. Her work, I knew that was going to happen. Sorry. Where did it go? Has been included in Nature Culture, organized by the Society for Contemporary Craft in Pittsburgh, the National Portrait Gallery, and she was part of the program that put art in embassies around the world. Her work was in Brussels and Africa, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. She currently lives and works in Auburn with chickens.
And goats.
And goats, and maybe we'll hear more about that. So one last quote. The theme for Marita is, as an African American, she is reclaiming what is considered useless in our society and giving it value as an aesthetic expression. So she is actually, the work is a metaphor. She's giving new life to discarded materials, permeates Dingus's physical appearance as well as her art. She always wears clothing made from scraps of recycled fabric. Her persona, as well as her art, is a joyful celebration of life and its possibilities. It defies the oppressions. It defies the oppressions of racism. Thank you. Please welcome Marita.
Thank you. So the piece that's on the entry page is a large piece that was at the Francine Setter's Gallery years ago. We're talking probably in the 90s. It was a large headpiece. After I had traveled throughout the South, I started doing pieces about the institution of slavery and what it did to African Americans. So you have the wires and things wrapped around the person's face, and it's about 5 feet tall, so it's larger than it's even being projected up on the screen. So, okay, that we went through that. Okay, So those are things I've done. I was on the King County Arts Commission for a long time, 6 years, which was kind of how I learned how to do public art, and we'll be looking at a lot, towards the end of the slide presentation, we'll be looking at a lot of the public art that I've done here in the city of Seattle. So this would be the first year of graduate school, so this would be 1983. This is a walker that I built this sculpture on, so it's about 4 feet tall. You can actually see part of the walker. It's also made out of 35mm slides and fabric, and a straw hat, and the mouth is the cage of a tomato, the cherry tomatoes. So I had worked for the Department of Ecology before I went to graduate school. I had also gone to Morocco, North Africa. So it was a combination of those two things that made me want to make sculpture instead of paint. I was trained in painting at Tyler School of Art, and even in graduate school, my degree is in painting, even though I made this. I didn't paint. So, but the painting department was where I fell into, and the faculty was very supportive of what I was doing. So this is a piece that's about 5 feet 8 inches tall, almost 6 feet tall. It was a collaboration with an artist named Juan Alonso. He's from Cuba. He's since moved back to Florida. And he did the paintings, and he cut up his canvas, and he dressed the sculpture that I made. This is a piece at the Seattle Art Museum. It's called Nkandi. I was a docent for the African art collection at the Seattle Art Museum for around 20 years. I started when the museum changed its location from Volunteer Park to downtown, which was, I think, what, 90, 92, something like that. So for about 20 years, I did tours of the African art collection. This was my most favorite piece in the collection. And when I make art, I think about Nkandi. That's his name. He's out of Zaire, the Congo area. I like him because he's misunderstood. Hollywood had portrayed him to be a negative thing, where you're harming people, where it's actually about arbitration. And when you're in a disagreement with somebody, together you bring a nail to Nkandi and nail it in, and you speak how you're going to rectify the argument that you're in. And the figure is like Judge Judy. You have to keep your word, or there might be some bad repercussions coming your way. Quilts are something I did for years, not so much anymore. This quilt, I believe, is in an elementary school in Auburn. It was purchased by the Washington State Arts Commission. These aren't quilts. I used to call them fences. We've got little black hands and then larger kind of clear white hands. And again, this was when I was doing the research about slavery. It was what I got my Guggenheim in. It was to do research on slavery in the South, so I lived in the southern states for about a year, going to the plantations and going to the museums, and anyway, seeing an awful lot in the South that has to do with slavery. This was a piece done after I had the Guggenheim. It was If It Had Rained Blood. So you've got the black fabric and then the red blood drop. That statement was describing a whipping or a beating that had taken place. I was reading a lot of the slave narratives while I was down there doing my research. Wall of Shackles and Chains. There was a ship brought up from the coast of Florida called the Henrietta Marie. It was a slave ship. Inside were these shackles and chains, and they were touring the contents of the ship. When I was in Fort Worth, Texas, I was able to go to the museum and see all the contents of this ship. And then I did my version of what was in the ship, except I was using clothes hanger wire and black fabric. These are my version of the seagrass baskets that the people and the Gullah people were making. I'm using a lot of wire and metal. You can see a sink strainer in the one on the left, and then I think that's the top of a lampshade or light fixture on the one on the right. These are the actual Sea Island baskets, and this is an African enslaved house. You can see kind of a blue tint to it, and it was called haint blue. And the reason why they were painted, the homes were painted blue, is because the devil would fly over and he wouldn't see your house if it was painted blue. So this, again, this is a North African tradition to paint your homes blue and to trick the devil so you don't have mischief and mishap happening in your home. So a lot of the houses of the Africans were painted blue in the South. The tradition doesn't hold up as much anymore, but traditionally that's what color you would want to paint your house. Okay, this piece, before I went to North Africa, Morocco, I got to go to Europe and study art because Tyler School of Art had a campus in Rome. So, for one of the school breaks, some of the students got to travel around, and we went to this monastery where there were all these skeletons, and they had made candelabras and light fixtures out of them. And some of the skeletons were babies. This was because during the Crusades, the men were rushing off to go fight in the Crusades and leaving the women behind, and the women couldn't take care of the babies, so they'd leave them at the monastery, and the babies didn't always make it. So that was how these baby skeletons ended up in the mix. I liked them, so I made little baby skeletons out of clothes hanger wire and white bread twisty wires. And then I have the telephones, because if you want to talk to the ancestors, you got to use something old and antiquated. So you would never talk to an ancestor with a cell phone. So you've got the old rotary phone, and this piece is called Talking to the Dead. So this is those little baby skeletons, again, made out of the white clothes hanger wire, which isn't recyclable. I like using things that cannot be recycled. And even now that motivates me. I tend to pick things to use that aren't recyclable. So that's a close-up of the clothes hanger wire and the little baby skeletons. So in Texas in the 90s, I want to say about 96, they drug an African-American man behind a pickup truck until he was dead. Now this was, I want to say this was right before Rodney King, or it might have been right after Rodney King. I was moving to Texas at the time, so I was pretty disturbed about this. I ended up living in Tyler, Texas, which was about 200 miles from where this incident occurred. So I made this piece. It's called Caution Man, and it's in tribute to what had happened and how black men are preyed upon and killed. And I made this piece in '96. So then when all of this just happened here recently was George Floyd, I said, wow, we say things change, but it's sad that we have to keep going through this. But anyway, so this is made out of pull tabs off of beer cans because I was in a dry county. Texas has wet counties and dry counties, so there were bootleg houses, and My friend would frequent the bootleg houses, and he convinced all his friends to save the pull tab, so then I made this pull tab piece. And it's about life size. It's at Evergreen State College in Olympia. So this is the 400 men of African descent and the 200 women of African descent. The 200 women is the circular piece, and the 400 men is the linear one. This was at the Museum of Glass. I believe it was exhibited in 2004 or something like that. But just recently, it was reinstalled at the Seattle Art Museum for a show about water. The reason why this piece got put in the show was because Pamela Kluski phrased it this way. The institution of slavery was the largest, the biggest, the most horrific crime that took place on the waters. You know, the Pacific Ocean, well, the Atlantic Ocean, was the largest crime, the most horrific crime that ever took place on the Earth's waters. And this is how this got in that show that she did about water and the Earth. So we have the 400 men on the lower ship, and then we have the 200 women on the upper. Well, I say ship, but it's actually the lower deck versus the upper deck. And this is about how it was, from what I've read, meaning the way Africans were stuffed and there was no room, and the fact that they survived is mind-boggling. The crossing could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months, again, depending on the wind and everything. So anyway, so this was at the Seattle Art Museum. I believe it was last year. They currently own the piece. It's not shown often because it's made out of textiles, and the insides of it is made out of ballpoint pens. What are you going to do with broken ballpoint pens besides throw them in the landfill? So the legs would be made out of the ballpoint pens, and then the bodies would be made out of those 35 millimeter film canisters back when we used to shoot film. So that's how the pieces were made. They're about, maybe 7 to 8 to 9 inches in height. And like I said, the museum owns both the men and the women. I had a show at the Museum of Glass. Again, I want to say maybe 2004, I think, might have been 2002, where they poured glass heads and then I would paint the faces. That's a close-up of one, and decorated it. And then you've got the bodies added to the faces. This is the Douglas Truth Library. The piece is on a wall that's about 30 feet long, and I think it's maybe about 20 feet high. The figures are about 10 feet. My favorite thing in the world is to make gigantic art, huge art. I don't get to make it often, but I try to make it all the time. Okay, this is a small piece. This was at Pilchuck. So I got to do a residency at the Museum of Glass, and then I got to do a residency at Pilchuck, where I made all these little glass children, primarily girls. So you've got all these little glass girls that were made and then decorated with found objects. This is made out of a sink faucet. If you look at one of the legs, you'll see that it's one of those sink faucets. The other leg, I think, is just a piece of metal. And then the face is the bottom of a glass jar. Since I don't have access to glass facilities, I've started using just glass jars to make my art out of. This is a piece that was at the Bellevue Art Museum. It's made out of pieces of copper and metal that someone gave me. It's about 5 feet tall. Well, maybe it's about 4 feet tall. And it's based on the Nkandi. Again, back to my favorite piece at the Seattle Art Museum, where you've got the kind of bristly texture on the body, and about bringing truth and goodness to the world. A large piece, one of my favorite pieces because it is 30 feet tall. This is at Bainbridge Island. I got to do an installation there. She was called Big Girl, or Hanging from the Rafters. And she is 30 feet tall. The legs are made out of 35 millimeter slide casings, because we don't do slides anymore. So people give me their slides. So then the plastic slides I covered, and that's what her legs are made out of. The cardboard slide covers I just recycle, but the plastic ones, they don't recycle all plastic. So, so the body has orbs made of plastic wrappers that I've wrapped with wire. The arms, again, are those slides. The face is a plastic hot tub cover. What are you going to do with a plastic hot tub cover besides put it in a landfill? So the hands are also the hot tub cover, and so is the feet. This is again one of these glass pieces that was made at Pilchuck. The legs, I think, are lamps when you have a broken lamp, and then this is the kind of metal thing that the light bulb screws into. The arms are those ceramic. I think they're part of electricity or wiring in the house. And then the glass was actually blown glass that was done for me at Pilchuck. These are really recent pieces. So these were done during the year of COVID, 2020. And I'm using plastic prescription bottles because I don't think they're recyclable. At least I've been told that they're too small and then they jam up the machine. So I don't believe, can you put prescription bottles in the, no. Yeah. So then what do you do with, so I don't want them in the landfill. So a lot of these are made out of prescription bottles that have been covered with fabric, but then you don't know it's a prescription bottle. You don't know what's making it up. But anyway, so, and then they got decorated. I got to do a residency at Pottery Northwest. So I've been really fortunate. I get to do residencies at really cool places and use medias that I don't usually have available to me. So I got to do all these clay faces. Usually my faces are pretty flat, so the idea of making 3D clay faces was really good for me. Even Susan's doll, it's not a clay face, but when I made it, I said, let me make the fabric kind of 3D, so the nose and the eyes and all kind of poke out and all. So that's kind of the direction I'm moving in. And then the piece at the end is a collaboration I did with a ceramic artist named Barbara Shaman. She used to attend Pottery Northwest, so her and I collaborated on the face. And that face is just one of the flat faces that is painted. So quilts again, and quilts in the middle, and then these kind of fence things on the end. This was, someone gave me all these little pieces of tin. And I'm talking about thousands of pieces of tin. They were either circles or squares or diamonds or triangles. She didn't know where the tin came from. They were fairly small, so I strung them together and made these little figures. Now these figures are representing the 200 Nigerian girls that were kidnapped by the Boko Haram, I want to say in about 2016, 2018, something like that. Anyway, some of the girls found their way home. Most of the girls did not. They're even missing to this day. So this was an installation dedicated to the 200 Nigerian girls that were kidnapped. And it was at the Traver Gallery. This was an installation at Bellingham, Whatcom County Museum in Bellingham. People were to put paper notes on this installation, It was an installation about people moving to the Northwest and why they came to the Northwest. And I did these nets and decorated them, and you can see some paper notes attached to them. This was at the Traver Gallery, made of plastic construction fencing and plastic prescription bottles. You guys see the kind of gold, the amber colored prescription bottles in there? Unfortunately, when the sun hits prescription bottles, they deteriorate, which I didn't know. So this piece has to live in the forest, otherwise it will deteriorate. This is the Buddha. Buddha, as an African enslaved, it's 60 feet long. I got to go to China in 1994 for the women's conference. They used to have these huge women's conference, and this one was in China, the Beijing Women's Conference. So there was a 60-foot Buddha right out in a temple right off of Tiananmen Square. So I wanted to make a 60-foot Buddha. So I made a 60-foot long Buddha, and when I installed them at a place called LA Art Corps, it reminded me of Africans slid into these slave ships. So it became Buddha as an African enslaved. He's made out of navy blue polyester. Someone had given me probably 20 yards of navy blue polyester. So that's what he's primarily made out of, but his hands are quilted, his face is quilted, his feet is quilted, and the body is wire wrapped around this navy blue polyester. This is a piece at Renn Community Center. It's 20 feet, maybe it's 12 feet tall and 24 feet long. I think that's it. Made out of chicken wire that's been covered with fabric. Children helped me make this piece. This is the beginning of kind of my public art work. This was done in, I want to say, maybe 95, I believe. Oops. Okay. This is Delridge Community Center. We're using bottle caps. Again, bottle caps aren't recyclable. From what I've heard, they're so small they break the machinery or something like that. So you can't recycle bottle caps. So I had the children make these bottle cap children, and then they got to put their face on whatever bottle cap person they made. There's 88 of them. You can see the entire screen at the Delridge Community Center with the little figures. You can faintly see the little figures in the screen. And again, there's 88 of them, little children. This is at the Meadowbrook Community Center. It's about 30 feet tall. It's in the stairwell. Children strung the orange juice can lids. Again, they won't let you recycle the caps and the tops because I guess they're too small and they mess up the equipment. So orange juice, frozen juice can lids can't be recycled. Though I think if you wash the cardboard around them, you can recycle that. But anyway, so you've got this frozen juice can lids, the children strung them, they became the scales, the fish scales for this giant fish child. I painted the fins and the face on top. And again, it's about 30 feet tall. This is Pratt Park. They wanted an African theme to Pratt Park, so I did these drawings of the Ashante, the little Ashante doll we have in Vitroturf on the surface. Then we have laser cut leopard, so it's cut, and then the colors are red, black, green, and yellow. This is Seattle Central Community College. It's a 15-foot tall wall, so it's a 15-foot tall person. So it's bigger than the way it's projected. It would be more like maybe the height of this room, if this room is 15 feet tall, but I'm thinking it's not, so it's taller than this room. So it's a big red wall. It was by the computer program, meaning they have a computer program, a tech program, so it's made out of computer parts. I painted the feet and the hands and the face, and it used to be by a daycare too, but the daycare has since either closed or moved. So, and it's also by the recycling program or the recycling station at the college. It's in the basement, the basement entrance of Seattle Central Community College. Okay, so this is, the one on the right is my most recent piece. It was done with my husband, Preston Hampton. We co-collaborated on this piece. It's called Winds of Change. It's based on the Yoruba deity Oya, who is the wind, goddess of the winds. It's talking about the gentrification of the central area and how it has changed. It was the historic black neighborhood, but now it is white, but not all white. I guess there are still black people in the central area. But anyway, the gentrification of the central area. So you've got Oya, Winds of Change. This is at the Jackson Street apartment on 23rd and Jackson. And it's approximately 15 feet tall. It's cast aluminum for the face, and the body is stainless steel. And like I said, my husband, Preston Hampton, he helped design it. We had it fabricated at a place called FS, Fabrication Specialist, but he came up with the design and the idea, and I I did the face, but then he actually helped me with the face. So anyway, we worked on it together. It was based on the piece on the right, which is at Town Hall. Unfortunately, instead of being vertical, it's horizontal because Town Hall didn't have a vertical place to put it, so it's shown horizontally. So this piece on the right was based on this piece on the left, which is called Woman as a Creator, and it is also about 12 feet tall, I think. And it's made of fabric and wire, and the face is painted. I think that's the end of the slides. And we're right at a half hour. Okay. Okay.
So now you're going to do a demonstration.
Or we can do questions.
You want to do questions first?
Yeah. In case you guys have questions, then I can do a demonstration and we can still do questions. But did anybody have any burning questions?
Let's find a mic. Is there, oh, you have a mic. And you have a question?
I just wanted to know what you're currently working on and if that's changed yet again, because it looks like you have many, many ideas.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune, you guys are familiar with the Seattle Storm, right? The women's basketball team. They're building a new training facility. I believe it's on Interbay or something like that. Does somebody know? Yeah. And I was chosen to make an outdoor sculpture of a woman playing basketball for them. And they said it can be really big. I would like to do something the size of Hammering Man, but unfortunately we don't have the budget. I want to do something 58 feet tall. But, so it's probably going to be in the 20-foot range. And at this point it's going to be an abstract image of a woman playing basketball at this point. Very similar to the piece I did at the Jackson Street apartment. Yes?
Marita, that just was fabulous. I want to know when you travel, when you go to China, for example, what do you take with you? Your wire cutters?
I don't. I mainly just bring bring a book and I write down ideas that I get. And then I'm just chomping at the bit to get back home so I can start acting on these ideas. So.
Young lady, I'm 93 years old, and I
Wow.
have never seen anything like this in my life. You are fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here.
Okay, thank you.
Do you collect things yourself, or does everybody just donate to you that you don't even get to go collect things?
Everybody just donates, which I like, because I like the challenge of getting something that I didn't pick out. I love that challenge. So yeah, people know what I do, and they give me things. I've maxed out the interior of my mother's house, which is where my studio is in Auburn, in the family home. So I'm now kind of only taking things that can live outside, because like I said, I've maxed out the inside of the house. So I'm not taking fabric as much as I used to, because fabric can't live outside. I am taking a lot of glass and metal, because that can live outside. And if I cover up fabric with this type of vinyl that is actually archival or UV treated, some plastics can live outside. So I am taking some plastic. I've been really disappointed with plastic, the fact that sunlight will make it decompose. So I got to protect the plastic from sunlight. Otherwise, I'm just making tiny particles that are going to get into the waterways anyway. So. Yes.
I just want to supplement something you said about collecting. Marita can't walk down the street without seeing something in the sidewalk or in the gutter someplace and finding, oh, I can probably turn that into art. So she does do some collecting, and there's lots of knick-knack and articles that who knows when they'll be used. So.
Yeah, I do like shiny pieces of metal, like a crow, right? Crows like shiny pieces of metal, right?
Shiny things. Do you use, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, do you use old cookie tins?
I would love old cookie tins. No, that's metal, and it could live outside, and a lot of times they're aluminum, which again, they won't rust, so they'll live outside fine. Yes. I sense you guys are going to start collecting for me.
Do you want to come to our Monday market?
I might.
And what about an iron skillet?
You know, those wrought iron skillets are great. I mean, I might use it if it's a nice wrought iron skillet, but yes. Yeah, I would. Yes.
So where do you work on those 50-foot pieces?
I work outside a lot. My parents, they bought 7 acres out in Auburn, and it's a forest. But they cleared around the house, and there's this huge cement slab, and then there's a pretty good sized yard. So I work outside a lot, which means I can, the sky's the limit almost. and so that's where I'm building a lot of these big things. The 60-foot Buddha I actually made in a house, and I made it in 6 10-foot sections. And I made it in the living room of this house, and I knew that 10 6-foot sections would give me 60 feet. So the head is 10 feet, and then the hands are 10 feet, and the feet are 10 feet, and then the body and legs make up the rest. So for that, it was in 10-foot sections, knowing that, I think even in art school, they say people are 8 heads high or something like that. So there is a way you can kind of space it out.
Do you do animals in addition to people?
Do I do animals?
Yeah.
Sometimes I might do a cat, because I like cats. And then I'll put a person's face on it though. But the Egyptians did. If you look at those Egyptian cats, those are people faces on those cats. I think they're people faces. Those Egyptian cats, yeah.
Rita, is there any material that you've ever used and found that it didn't work well and never wanted to use it again?
The plastic is like I said, the fact that if it sits in the sunlight, it actually crumbles. But I'm determined to still use it because it is so toxic to the earth. And so, like I said, I've discovered that if I put it in this vinyl, this UV treated vinyl, the sunlight can't get to it and break it down. So it's almost like burying it. I've also been putting the plastic in glass jars, which is what they do with nuclear waste. They put it in these glass rods, and then they bury those glass rods because, you know, what are you going to do with this nuclear waste? So I'm putting the plastic in glass jars, and that way if it does decompose into all those little tiny fragments, at least it's in a glass jar and not in the environment. So I am trying to come to terms with plastic because it is fragile, and I'm really trying to keep it out of the earth.
Maybe it's time to do the demonstration.
Sure.
We can have more questions while you get set up.
Well, just,
Okay.
do you want our pill bottles even though they do decompose?
I like them. Well, like I said, I live in the forest, so I'm filling up these kind of chicken wire columns with the pill bottles because they're that pretty amber orange. And because I live in the forest, the sun never gets in there. These sculptures are in the forest. You've been out to the house. So yeah, I mean, I've got these columns of them and they're not breaking down because the sunlight isn't getting to them.
Right.
And they're very pretty.
We have lots of pill bottles.
Oh, I bet you do. And when the sun hits them, they really glow. Like the sun filtered through the trees will hit them and they kind of glow. So sure, yes. Okay, should I do the demonstration? Okay. I'm going to plug in the glue gun. There. Okay, so thank you. This is nice. I'm going to put this in clothing. This would make good in clothing. So this isn't going to become art. This is going to become something that I'm going to wear. So I brought. I'm going to demonstrate two ways that I make art. These are these plastic bottles, you know, when you fly in an airplane. And again, I think these are too small that they don't want to recycle them. Also, the caps off of the prescription bottles. In King County, because I'm out in Auburn and Renton, you can't do anything with these caps. Is that the way it is in Seattle? You have to throw the caps in the garbage? Yeah. So I take these caps and I glue them together and make people out of them. And again, these would end up, they're too small, so these will end up being the arms and legs. But you all can already, this was a wine, right? But it broke. My son had this, and I said, "Oh, I know what, you guys know what this is, right? I mean, it's already looking like a person." So, but my father was an engineer, and because he was a mechanical engineer, so whenever I put things together, I'm always thinking about how to put it together so that it stays together. I have art friends that would think they could glue this to this. And it's like, no, you can't glue plastic to metal. It just won't work. Physics, I mean, it just won't work. So the way I would put, and also being an engineer's daughter, I know that you need the counterbalance. You know, for this weighs so much that this is now going to be really sturdy because this is really heavy. Okay? So to attach this to this, I've already took, this is plastic, so I already took a Dremel and drilled holes in the part, I guess this was the part that would have grabbed onto the bottle, right?
Yeah.
So I drilled holes in here, and then this has holes in it, so it would be a matter of wiring. So you can't glue. Even though there are some really strong adhesives out there, I really don't think, I think over time they would unglue. And because this is metal and this is plastic, you can't weld it. Okay? So I once talked to a welder and they said, you know, you do things welders could never do because welders couldn't put plastic to metal. Because, you know, it just doesn't work. So right now I'm going to wire this to this. And I probably wire it a lot because I want it to stay. So I have around 8 holes in here. And it's like, for me, it's like sewing 2 things together. I machine sew, I seldom hand sew, but when it comes to making art, I use wire the way you might use thread if you were sewing. So it is like hand sewing. So I'm taking and I've got these pre-drilled holes and I'm basically wiring or sewing this plastic thing to the metal so that it will, you know, be strong enough to hold up and stay. So I've got it about 3 times now and I'm pulling it. So now I'm going to do the other side. And I brought up quite a bit of wire. And this is telephone wire. Back in the 60s and 70s, you could get telephone wire anywhere, anytime, and you could get it for free. Now it's like gold because I guess it's all fiber optics. So it's hard to find. Occasionally when people are tearing down a house, you know, they will pull out the wiring and there'll be some telephone wire in there. If you go to eBay, I don't know how much it costs, but I think it costs a whole bunch of money. I have a friend who used to know someone who used to tear down homes, and he would always give her a supply of telephone wire, and then she would give me telephone wire. So it's wonderful stuff. It's really soft. It's easy on the hands. I've had 2 surgeries on my right hand because I'm so brutal to my hands. But this is still soft enough and easy enough for me to use. So now I've got it wired down. And I'd probably wire it some more, but to move on, I'll just stop right there. And then we need a face. So this is wire mesh. I don't know what it would have been used for, because it's not like screen, but you see it's pretty dense. Okay, so this is a piece of wire mesh. And I think I used fingernail polish from the dollar store to kind of paint a face on there. Black and white fingernail polish from the dollar store. Again, enamel is pretty good. It can hold up outside. And this is a metal mesh. So this would get wired, do you all see?
Yes.
To the face. And then let me just go ahead and wire it real quick. So this is a broken pair of scissors that has a nice point. So this is what I use to make the little holes with. You don't have to throw things away. You can always find a use for them. So I'm going to attach the face. Okay, and how are we doing time-wise? We got lots of time. Does anybody have any questions while I'm doing this?
The thing you've got that we don't
space to keep all of these things.
Yeah, 7 acres was pretty good, huh?
How did you start doing this kind of art?
My father, he was a mechanical engineer, but he would also come home and tinker. He had a machine shop, and he would be he actually had a lathe. You know, lathe, is that what that big machine where that goes round? So he was always, you know, kind of tinkering around. And my mother used to sew clothes and make quilts. So both of my parents were makers. And so as a little girl, I was making paper dolls all the time. And then I started making fabric dolls. And then going to art school, you know, I was forced to paint. But then when I was in graduate school, I could do whatever I want, such as the nature of graduate school. So that's when I started making, you know, people, was in graduate school. And making them out of things I had found when I worked for the Department of Ecology. So I had to make that hole a little bigger because I couldn't get the wire through. But you see, I'm sewing the face, or attaching the face.
Around the arm.
Oh, I see.
You could have just glued that on.
No, the glue won't hold. I mean, there's some really, also glues are really toxic. And my friend Steve Jensen, he uses a lot of glues and resins, and I went to go visit him. And his place really had that glues and resin smell going on. I have hot glue, which is kind of toxic, but I don't think it's as bad as some of these resins. So I got to tighten this up because it kind of wiggles for a minute there. Okay, so you see how it's evolving? Yeah. And then the good thing is you can make the head go. Right? So the last part of this, which is pretty tricky, is I wanted to have these light bulbs be the legs. Right? Yeah. So again, you can't glue the light bulbs to that. So what I end up doing, this actually has a nice lip. But what you can do is, you can take the wire, the trusty telephone wire, and if you, because of, there's a recess where the light bulb meets whatever part that's called. There's a little recess or groove. What you can do is you can tie something really tight right in that recess, and then you'll have something to grab onto and attach. So I'm going to tie something really tight in that recess, really, really tight. Okay, so now I have something I can hold on to, and again, I would string it through this hole and then grab the other one.
So you're not going to make a wardrobe for the doll?
For this one? I might. And then I would take little metal, whatever, little beads and all, maybe make a skirt, maybe a shirt, we'll see. So anyway, so I would see you run and you attach the one leg, and then this light bulb, and again, someone gave me these light bulbs, and I think they're the kind that maybe are sensors, or they come on at night and they don't come on in the daytime. There's some kind of a high-end light bulb, which again would go to a landfill, because actually these might be the toxic light bulbs that you got to take to the hazardous waste place. Yeah. So anyway, so this already has this wonderful metal lip, which means it's very perfect, where you would just secure again around there, and then you'd be able to attach the legs.
Marita, what did you do for the Department of Ecology?
I was a road crew supervisor, so I had 5 young people. They were teenagers. I think you had to be at least a sophomore in high school. And we would go up and down Highway 167 and Highway 18. Thank God they didn't put us on I-5. And we would pick up litter off of the freeways. Wow. And I did that for probably two summers, 2 years, mainly in the summertime, but then I actually did it in a weekend program because occasionally they wanted people to run a program on the weekends, so we would do it on Saturday and Sundays. And I did it for 2 years and collected a lot of stuff. Yeah. So you guys get the gist? Okay. So this one is gonna be more like Susan's. Meaning Susan's piece is a bunch of plastic bottles that's been covered with fabric. But you wouldn't know. You don't know what's in. Did you know what was inside, no, Susan? Did you care what was inside? So at this point, we're using the glue. Now, fabric and glue go together. That will stick, you know, but metal. So I'm just going to glue these together. And even though they're sticking, I'm going to still be covering them with fabric because, again, plastic will decompose if it's in enough light. So I'm just gluing them together, stacking them up. There and there. Okay, so let me do like this. So this will be the body, okay? And you guys brought me fabric, right? Red, why not? So now I'm gonna glue this fabric, which will hold all these together. Okay? So the fabric will reinforce what I just did and keep everything all together. And let's see, what other? This is too pretty. Let's see. I like reds. I'll use this too. Okay. Okay, so, and now at this point we will trim this. So this isn't going anywhere and it's all covered up and you don't know it's in there, and that's a good thing. And then we're going to cut this. Okay. So then these are going to be the legs. And let's see, about like that. Okay, so then we just take, so the fabric is helping it all stay together. It's kind of like masking tape or duct tape. So there's no way it's going to ever really come apart. Hot melt glue and fabric get along really well. It's pretty permanent. I have some pieces that were made in '83 and they're still glued together. That's a long time. I mean,
Marita, do you sign your pieces?
I don't. I don't. But occasionally people ask me to, and I have no problem with signing it, but I don't. Oh no, there. I didn't let it dry.
Both sides. So glass and fabric will stick together.
Kinda, yeah. Well, this isn't glass. This is plastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are those plastic bottles that, you know, the airlines, they used to give you glass bottles. Sometimes you order a drink and they'll give you a glass bottle, but most of the time they're plastic now.
Well, that's good for collecting.
Yeah, yeah. I was told that there's a overabundance of glass, and that even recycling glass is something that may become a thing of the past. Up in Canada, they don't recycle the glass because they just can't use, there's more glass than they could use. So that's kind of sad. So now, you know, you just saw that leg almost come off, so now I'm going to reinforce it by having the glue on the bottle and then to the actual fabric. Because fabric to fabric is the best bond. Okay, and then I'm going to do this one.
It's too magic. Can you cut glass? Like if you have a glass bottle, a jar, could you cut the bottom out?
They have, have you used a glass cutter before? It's this little metal thing about yay long, and it has a little wheel. And I've cut plate glass, flat glass. A long time ago, they had this strange contraction where you could cut glass jars, and you kind of
bottle into a drinking glass.
Yeah, back in the 60s, I think. But I haven't seen, and basically it cut around the jar, and then it did this kind of tapping, and then you were able to break it off. But then, of course, you needed to sand that thing, otherwise you have bloody, right? It's pretty bad. So you can't cut glass, but then, you know, if you're going to make a
face, I mean, out of the bottom.
Oh, out of the bottom.
Or a jar,
Yeah. And I've been kind of relying on just broken, meaning finding broken jars with that round thing at the bottom. But I should probably try to use my my glass cutter around the jar, and I bet you, but then I need to tap it, you know, to break it, to make it, you know, that knocking, because that's the way you, with glass, you score it, and then you, some of you guys have done that, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so I've just secured the legs a little more, and then I would go ahead and wrap the fabric around it. Okay, and then this is, you know, you go to hotels and you get those little shampoo or whatever. Okay, that's going to be the arms. Huh. You could actually go like that, but I don't think I trust that. So we're going to glue the arms on, and then we'll use fabric to secure it in place. Just get in there, right? So let's use the red again. And I didn't bring, it's what's it called? Hot melt glue. And I don't use low temperature, I use the high temperature because I think the low temperature, it doesn't bond as good because it is low temperature. So the bonding isn't as nice. This is some pretty fabric. Okay. Oh, that's nice. I did not bring a head for this person. And I use these little glue guns because I burnt myself pretty bad with the big ones. So I have just better control with the little high temperature versus the big glue guns. Sometimes if I'm doing a big piece, I will use a big glue guns. But usually if I'm doing this, I'm doing small little doll-like pieces. So then I'll cut off this little bit of extra fabric here, though this is nice. But I'll cut it off. We'll make it asymmetric. So you all get the ideas. And again, I would have a little face that I had drawn. And as far as the head, we could use these corks. Oh, this is a good one. We could glue corks to this. This is like an eye drop refresh bottle. So we could take and glue the corks to this and get something like a head. Okay, you all see? Okay.
Stuck right down in there.
Yeah.
Magic.
So, we still got 25 minutes. I'll just keep working and you guys can keep thinking of questions to ask me. How's that?
What will you do with these?
With these?
With these and others that you use for demonstrations? Will you make them into pieces you'll...
Yeah, I'll sell them. Yeah, I probably will continue to work on them. You don't have to go till 4:30. No, I'm fine. I can keep going. Because aren't we supposed to go till 4:30?
You don't have to know.
I don't mind
That's how
going.
long we have the room for.
Okay, I don't mind.
Did you want to say anything about the other things?
This is a nice one. This is a really nice one. This was made during the pandemic in 2020. And I think, isn't it called coping or something like that? It has, I'm feeling it, and I'm thinking it has spools, plastic, thread spools. The styrofoam thread spools are in the legs and the arms because I'm feeling it. The body, I can't tell what it is, but it must be plastic bottles. And the head is pretty hard.
And it has his face.
Yeah, the face, I don't know if you're going to like this, but I had one of those stuffed, those stuffed alligators you get from Florida way back in the day? This is the tip of the tail. It's okay, it made a nice mouth. Look, you can see his little scales.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's the tip, because those stuffed alligators, they decompose. I mean, they dry rot, right? They dry rot. So this is the tip of, because I used to collect those and the armadillos. So that's what now the nose is also some type of vinyl, and it looks like it might be the hot tub cover, the brown hot, and you see the little stitching?
Yeah.
Because they have those little flaps or whatever straps.
Yeah.
So this is part of the strap of the brown hot tub cover.
Oh.
Okay, wire mesh. I love wire mesh. Okay.
And the coin?
I don't know what country that is. That could be China.
Yeah.
That could be. Yeah, what do you think? I think that's China.
Yeah,
Look
it looks like China.
So yeah, it must have been when I went to China.
Remember I was with you when you saw that Buddha?
Yeah, she was in China what year was that? 94?
95, I think,
95?
something like that.
The UN Women's Conference, they had one in Mexico City, they had one in Cairo, Egypt. Yeah, they don't have them anymore. China might have been the last one. Hillary Clinton spoke,
Yeah,
remember?
Hillary Clinton spoke, yeah.
Yeah. It was
And
a
they
big
moved us
deal.
out to the country because they were afraid of us.
Yeah,
We were
they were
supposed to be-
afraid we were going to take off our tops.
We do that all the time.
We do that all the time. And this was, I think, some jewelry someone made, and then they gave it to me.
Oh,
You see how
okay.
the wire is wrapped around it?
Nice.
This is an African trade bead there. This was, the braid, remember the 70s?
Oh, yeah.
And those guitar straps that
Oh,
were
yeah.
braided?
Right.
Okay.
That's great.
So anyway, yeah, it has a little, and rings, gosh, it has rings on it. Yeah, people give me jewelry.
It's sort of like a talisman of survival.
Yeah.
It seems like she's loaded up with everything she needs
Oh,
to
yeah,
survive.
yeah, she'll make it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, it was. I had a show at the Traver Gallery in 2020, and I didn't think anything would happen because it was 2020, we were all locked down. And work sold. I mean,
Yeah.
I was shocked, you know,
Yeah.
that people, did you actually physically go to the gallery or did you buy it online?
Oh, yeah. I went to the opening.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about this earlier work?
Yeah, quartz, when I was collecting quartz. I used to collect quartz, and but then I realized that Total Wine will recycle them. They have this big bin, and you can bring your quartz in and they'll recycle them. Quartz actually hold up pretty good outside, but they're not toxic to the environment because they're cork trees. So I decided, since it's not toxic to the environment and since Total Wine will take them, I said I don't need to reuse corks anymore. But I did start off using corks. This is the infamous clothes hanger wire, which is not recyclable. They don't want you to you can put metal in the recycle, but they don't want clothes hanger wire in your recycle. And then we've got the hands. The hands, again, are talismans for good luck, or stopping bad luck, or whatever. So you've got the hands. The face is leather. And I look at the face and I want to go in there and color it a little more because I see it's fading. I don't know what, when I use leather, sometimes I'll use felt tip marker, not realizing that over time felt tip marker will fade. Because it is faded, but it's still a very sweet face. I really like that face. It's a nice face. And it's stuffed because I like my work to have a little dimension to it. I don't like things that are flat. That's not nice, because paintings are flat. I like some paintings. But anyway, so I always, the face has got a little, it's at least an inch or two deep. And this is an old piece. This must be the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe 2000, but I'm thinking it's the 90s. So.
You
Oh!
never know the family.
Oh! But does it work?
It's broken.
It's broken! Good! Thank you! Yay! Thank you!
It's 2002.
2002?
Yeah, and it's called Floating Through Life.
Okay, because of the corpse.
Floating Through Life.
Because of the corpse, yeah.
Yeah. And when you hang it up, all the hands are...
Yeah, they stick out.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a long time ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah. This is cool.
It was in the same show with the man with the caution markers.
Oh, yeah. So that was after the Guggenheim, yes.
Susan, how did you meet Marita?
I have no idea. How did we meet? Who knows?
You were writing a book. Maybe that one.
No, it might have been the other book. You're
Yeah.
And
you came out to the house and met my mother,
Right.
and I think we had lunch,
Yeah.
and you interviewed me for the book.
That's it.
And why you chose me, I don't. Maybe you had seen my work at
I'm
Francine's.
sure I had.
Yeah. But that's how we met. She came out to the house in Auburn. And my mother used to be so pleased when people would come out to the house.
Yeah, she's in both books. Some people are in both books, not many. Right.
It's not hard to guess why she came.
Yeah.
Where did you show before Francine?
Barbara Shaman, who was at Sam Gallery, had a gallery in Belltown. This was in 1986. It was called Shaman Studio Gallery. And she had run an ad in the papers wanting artists for her gallery. And it was in the newspaper, like the PI or the Times, wanted artists for gallery. This was in 86. And I answered her ad. And I told her I did traditional African art. And she says, well, you know, I don't show traditional African art, but why don't you bring your work in and I look at it. And she said it was the most non-traditional. And she put me in her gallery window. And Bruce Gunther, is that his name?
Yeah, that's right.
Bruce Gunther, who was at the Seattle Art Museum, he was the curator, was picking out artists for Northwest 87. He saw my work in her window, and I got to be in Northwest 87, which was this art thing they used to do at the Seattle Center to celebrate Northwest artists. And I was in Northwest 87, and from there, the rest is history. Barbara Shaman closed her gallery in '89, and that's when I went to Francine and asked her, and Francine said yes.
And that was already in Greenwood, right?
Yes, Francine was at Greenwood. So yeah, I went from Barbara Shaman to Francine's.
And now Traver.
And now Traver. When Francine closed in 2012, I think it was.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I went to Traver after that. So.
Are you having a show coming up?
I don't have, well, I'm going to be in art fair.
Oh.
And in fact, they're going to let me do something really big in art fair. I'm thinking it might be 20 feet. We're not sure. But they're going to, not only will she have my work in her space, but they're going to let me do a big piece in the public space at art fair. So I'm really excited
And then will
about
it be
that.
for sale if you do it in the big public space?
Sure. Why not?
Or, who will own it, or might you have to just take it apart?
I probably won't take it apart. All my big pieces are living on the 7 acres. So if you come out to my house, which Jenny Phileas has brought you guys out to my house before.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of you might remember that. So, so if you guys can twist Jenny's arm, she might bring you out to my house. How's that?
You must be an absolute kid to work with, or to live with. How does your husband survive, and what does he do?
Husband?
I endure.
We have 2 houses, his and mine.
So I think that's
That's good?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.